Don't get caught up in, oh, this is a great idea, so it's like spreading, it's worth $10 million. And it's all about execution. If they can execute and they have a great tech or great idea, but more importantly, are they good people? Tesla's got some great advantages on the side of buying the car, but on the service side, they're still lacking dramatically. If you can tap into that in an organized way that's meaningful for the dealer, that's the home run, multi-billion-dollar deal.
A significant amount of people listening to this podcast right now don't know who you are, but have used or are currently using or have interacted with some software or product that you have been involved with. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that's pretty fair. Yes.
You founded Chrome Data, which sold to Dealertrack in 2005. Many years later, it's today owned by JD Power. It's valued, or I believe, or valued at $1.4 billion. I mean, we can go on and on. You were part of Dealix, which, if people here have been in the industry for a while, I remember Dealix from when I started in the industry, actually. And we were buying, I don't remember if we were buying leads from Dealix necessarily, but we were using it in some capacity. Yeah. So Dealix, is it Cargigi? How do you say that?
That's how you pronounce it. You bet. Cargigi. Exactly.
Investor and board member in LotLinks, investor and board member in CarWiser, early strategy with Car Gurus. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So Langley Steinhardt just needed some help getting introduced to the auto industry. And I just helped him connect to people, and then helped him hire a few people and got him in the early stage. This was way back when he first started in, after he sold TripAdvisor. And he's really, really good at SEO and SEM. So he took off and just, that thing exploded, went public, obviously. Sean Peoples was one of the guys I helped bring into the Car Gurus family. And that was fun. And he just built out the dealer network from there. So that was a very big success story.
But the list goes on. Car Saver. So you were involved there. I spoke with the founder maybe like 2 months ago. Autonomy, as we know, Scott Painter. I'm a tiny LP in that one, super tiny there. Digital Airstrike, Motor. Okay, so we get the point. You've been involved in a lot. You've seen a lot. You've been on the forefront of a lot of change in this industry, right? You're sort of let's call you the auto tech whisperer. Mark, just start us off, man. Like, what brought you into this industry?
So that's a great question. When I was 26, I think, and I didn't have the gray hair like I have now, but it was, I was working at Hewlett Packard in Corvallis, Oregon, and I was working in the calculator division. So I sold a heck of a lot of calculators back in the day, the HP 12Cs, the 15Cs, 11Cs. So those who know HP calculators know exactly what I'm talking about. And there are millions of them I sold. I was in the marketing department, learned a lot about marketing and sales, about the HP way, their management, their strategy. Back in the original days, it was great. And I had this buddy of mine who said, hey, do you know anything about computers? I said, a little bit. I played with them and I have a little bit of experience. And I had a neighbor that was actually next door to me, and his name was Silas Hug. And he was a microcomputer specialist at Oregon State University. And he knew how to program, and I knew how to sell. And so we got together. We said, hey, we could start this automotive thing. And these dealers have these giant ordering books, right? I mean, it takes them an hour or two just to spec out a Chevy truck or a Ford truck, because all the options. And if you could just put this on a PC. Now, back then, remember, PCs had a 10 megabyte hard drive and a 5.25 inch floppy disk with a monochrome screen, I think green or amber. If you're really fancy, you got the amber screen. And you had this like PCs, but dealerships didn't even know what, first of all, there was no internet back then. Second of all, they didn't really have PCs. I mean, they had fax machines, right? And that was pretty much it. So we introduced this product called PC Car Book to the auto industry. And literally, we didn't have a clue of what we were doing. We knew nobody in the auto industry, but we had this really cool technology. It priced out, it was Turbo Pascal, by the way, the language. It priced out a car or truck within minutes, sometimes seconds. So it was super fast. So for a dealer, these dealers remember this. The Chevy dealers 5,000 of them we sold. They knew this product was fantastic because it helped them spec out their truck for fleet. So this solution we came up with was really loved by the auto industry. And we grew that business over 16 years. And to think about 8,000 dealers later, it became kind of the standard in the industry. And then Chrome was born back in 1986 in my garage, literally on a fold out table with one PC, and just started making phone calls and selling dealers. It was awesome.
What? So, but walk me through how an HB guy, non-auto business gets into the car business indirectly, right, via software and becomes so successful. I think there's I can't tell you how many investors reach out to me, ask me questions, or like founders, from just the broader tech industry, like, oh, I want to come and disrupt this, disrupt that. And I feel like a lot, many of these people make mistakes. They don't realize the nuances of our industry, right? I think if you look at a company like Carvana, which obviously had, super ambitious undertaking, they have so many, their car business roots are so strong, right? Look at Vroom. And I'm talking about retailers right now, right? But like they acquired Texas Auto Direct back in the day, which gave them that auto business competency, right? All these different, all these players that somehow brought in the automotive competency. Now, these aren't pure software plays that I'm referring to, but my question to you is, what was it about you or your network, your surroundings that made you successful in this industry, given its nuances and how it kind of functions a bit differently than broader tech?
Boy, Yossi, I wish I had a magic answer for you. It was really just by trial and error. And I mean, we made every mistake in business you could possibly make at Chrome. And in spite of my stupidity, I still survived. So it's really about learning, pivoting, changing, growing. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew we had a really cool tech. It was good timing. It was something that the dealers just absolutely loved. I mean, they loved the product, and it was a real opportunity. It was a springboard to create relationships in the auto industry over 16 years that I was able to take to other companies. So I never burned a bridge. People burn bridges with me, but I personally have never burned a bridge, at least that I know of. And I think that reputation follows you. And I like to stay under the radar. I think we talked when we first started talking. I said, I don't do these interviews. I like to stay on the radar. I really do like to help others excel and become kind of the point of focus of their business. And so I've learned to help other people in more of a direct way, utilizing the relationships that I have in the auto industry. So I just tap into them. I make a phone call. I call the CEO of this company or that company, and we make things happen pretty quickly. So we get from 0 to 100 very fast because they trust me and my relationship. So as you build that, that's how I help other companies get going and start.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a good point, which is that you have been able to get close to some of the most incredible companies. Arguably, I could also, say it, in the opposite way, which is you've gotten close to these companies and they've also become great. So like we just mentioned a lot of names in there that many of you have heard of, right? So what is that, to your point, what's that secret sauce to getting, like you could have billions of dollars, but at the end of the day, if your reputation's not there, if people don't respect you, you're not going to get on the cap tables of some of the most influential automotive software companies. So what has that been for you? How have you done that over the years?
Sure. I think Lot Links is a good example. So Delix is a good example. Delix had 2 Stanford grads come from the Bay Area, and they started this company called invoicedealers.com. They blew through $1 million, and they didn't know anybody in the auto industry, and they had a great product, a lead, right? We could sell to dealers. And they were competing with Auto by Till and Auto USA back in the day. They didn't have a clue of who is who in the industry. And that's not all you need to know, but you got to have good tech. They had phenomenal tech and super smart guys. They ran out of money. They blew through $1 million. I wrote a check for $250,000. We took that business and literally in 4 years, and we brought Dean Evans in. We brought the great people that you probably have heard names of. And we took that company and sold it for under $100 million to Cobalt back in the 4 years later. So all the shareholders were very happy with that transaction, but we worked hard and these guys just were super smart. So what I do is I find a company. I look at the guy or the gal who's running it, right? Do they have integrity? Are they smart? And by the way, good idea is not at the top. Good idea is like third or fourth, right? And it's all about execution. If they can execute and they have a great tech or great idea, but more importantly, are they good people? And that for me is kind of the criteria. Then I know there's a formula for success there somewhere. So I'll help them. I'll either invest, I'll be on the board, I'll be an advisor, I'll get on the cap table either through investment or granting of options or stock. And then I'll help them accelerate. We'll just go. And I dive in. I'm not usually a passive investor, although one of my companies is a charging station company founded out of Portland, Oregon. And that company, I'm just a passive advisor and an investor, but I don't get involved in that. But my specialty is helping CEOs avoid all the mistakes I made in business. So that's sort of a formula that I use. And let's talk about lot links for a minute. Lot links is a great example of that. Len Short called me up and said, Boyd, I hear you're the guy to talk to, and blah blah. You know, Len is, he's awesome, and you know, I'd like to fly you down here to Oakland. Back at that time, they were down in Oakland at their headquarters. They had about three guys. They had Jason and Rob and I think Lance was there too. But we had that's all there was. There was no other employees, right? They had blown through $6 million. Same thing. I wrote a check. I raised money for them. I brought some cash in. I got on their board. I enjoyed Lotling so much. It was such a fun run. And they've been an incredible company. They've accelerated. They've done incredibly well. Len is, taken kind of a less role as chairman rather than CEO, and Jason stepping up. These are good people, but they have a great product. So all I did was help them connect into the industry, help them with strategy, raise money, and then I get out of the way.
You sort of answered my question, like, what's your secret sauce? And it seems to be like a combination of those couple of things. I want to, and by the way, you mentioned Len Short. Shout out Len Short for having a son named Cole Short, who's our head of content here at Car Dealership Guy. So
love Cole. He's awesome.
This episode is brought to you by Private Auto, the first transactional marketplace that enables a safe and secure way to buy and sell vehicles privately. Private Auto provides a self-service platform that removes the middleman and uses proprietary banking technology. This allows buyers and sellers to safely complete a private party sale on their own at any time. They've thought of it all. Identity verification to avoid scams, an e-bill of sale to simplify the paperwork, instant transfer of money between buyers and sellers, and so much more. Learn more at privateauto.com and use code CDG to list your car for free. You always seem to be on the cutting edge. And that's, I think, why I was so fascinated to have this discussion, because right now, I'm gonna ask you a very fully loaded question about, let's fast forward to 2030, right? What piece of software or tech that's up and coming today in our industry is selling for $100, $200, $300 million by 2030? What is that? What is that piece of software? In an adjacent way, what I'm asking you is where is value going to be created here over the next 5 to 6 years?
Data. AI, hungry for data. If you can tap into that in an organized way that's meaningful for the dealer, that's the home run multi-billion-dollar deal. So those type of businesses, and I'm not going to be shamed. I mean, I have a little stock in LotLinks. I'm not certainly a controlling interest of the majority, but in LotLinks, they've got data. They've got a lot of it. CarWiser. CarWiser has an incredibly deep database of information on pricing and consumers and when they sell their car, right? How do they sell their car? When did they sell it? What price? What is the pushback point of whether they go forward or not? And we have 6-7 years of data that we could use. And if a company did a roll up with all these data companies that have all this history, it's an unbelievable valuation at the end of the day. I'm not a rocket scientist. I can't predict the future. I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but my gut tells me if you have data, good quality, deep data with history, the AI can do amazing things with that information and deliver value for a dealer and a consumer.
So let's dig into that a little bit more, right? When you say data, we know that a lot of the large automotive services company have tons of data, but the first party data here in our industry is originating with the dealer for the most part, right? And so one of the big, rising parts of our industry have been these customer data platforms where they pretty much tap into your CRM, your DMS, or they get your customer information and they help you make sense of it, right? Because it's not just getting the data, which is, arguably the easier part. It's, can you make sense of the data? Can you leverage it to your advantage, right? Is that an area where you think that there's a lot of opportunity for our industry to drive value? Like, is it overhyped, underhyped? Where are you on the spectrum of customer data platforms? And generally speaking, leveraging, helping dealers and our industry take all this customer data from years and years, that's in many cases a jumbled mess, and make sense of it to drive more value. What's your take on that?
Right. So I think there's a big disconnect, right? Like you said, there's all this data. How do you get it in a usable format that dealers can take advantage of it to help sell cars faster, more relevant to the consumer's needs? And I can't identify a single company that I know today that has all of it. I think there's companies have different bits and pieces of it, right? So if you think about JD Power, a treasure trove of data, right? They bought Chrome data, they bought all these other inventory companies, and now they're being shopped, right? So who is that? I'm curious about who that buyer is for JD Power, and then what they're going to do with that data, because that's the next iteration. I don't know how exactly, Yossi, how you can take, or what companies today actually do that. I think Digital Airstrike is on the kind of the cutting edge of taking a lot of their information, because they got a lot of dealers and they're using their platform to expand more in the SaaS model. So I'm watching them grow too in kind of that direction, where they're starting to accumulate and understand the value of the data they have, and similar companies, right? And CarSaver is another one, right? The Walmart auto buying program. And I know Sean Wolfington, a good friend of mine, he was the original founder and brought that business together. And the whole team is fantastic. I love those guys. They're in an interesting position too, right? Because they've got volume. And so I don't know really where this is going to go, but I am super interested. And I'm scared too, because I always get this like fear of AI. Like, what the heck is it, first of all? And what's it going to do? I have this little chat program I use on my phone now. It's the 4.0 chat GDP, and it has a woman's voice, right? I tried to change the voice to a Southern accent. Didn't quite work. I tried to change it to she didn't want to do that. I call her Lily. She gives me this. She designed something. She engineered something for me in this new company I just started. I can't tell you about, because if I did, they would probably kill me. So it is a new business and it's phenomenal, but I can't tell you about it. We'll have to do that later. But she's telling me
we'll get it out of you.
You can't. I'm a steel trap. I've got guys watching me, right? Said no, can't tell. I would love to, though. Absolutely love to. But no, so she's telling me this, and she's engineered something. I don't even need an engineer on this thing. It was phenomenal, and it started using it in different ways. It's just like if you ask the right questions, you'll get the solution that you want. So it's interesting. I don't know where this is going to go in the auto industry, though.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, I have many more questions here. So first of all, I want to ask you about some current software that's being used and if your outlook on that. Before we get to that, what's exciting to you from an auto tech perspective nowadays?
There's a company that I'm considering getting involved in. It's called Unison. And they also have a product called Dealer Mesh. And basically what it is, it's a front end platform like a website, but in the back end, it takes all the 80 vendors that dealers have, right? That are disconnected, and they do iframes into your website and they take your data. We don't know what they do with your data. And this is kind of a tool that connects all these vendors for the dealer, like a mega dealer group. Mostly a larger group or a medium-sized group would take advantage of something like this. And it has a dashboard that shows, this connection's broken, or this is working well, or whatever. But it integrates all these vendors together, and you control the data. And this is something that dealers are giving up right now. They're not even aware of the fact when they partner with one of these companies, they're potentially giving away their very valuable information to areas that could be used with their competitors potentially. So this protects that. I like this company. I'm considering some involvement with them because I think they've got a real cutting edge technology that will help a dealer control their own data. That's important. And then another thing I think about too is like, what's happening on this lawsuit? It's coming up here from the FTC that tell basically the dealer if they aren't transparent with their pricing and if they don't disclose of their dealer ads, there's like a $50,000 fine. Now there's a lawsuit from Texas that's trying to prevent this from happening with the FTC rule, but that's a big deal for a dealer. So if I'm a dealer and if I don't comply with this new law, it will take form in some way. The lawsuit's just going to slow it down. It's coming though. And the dealer's going to have to figure out how to be more transparent in that transaction, which by the way is good for the consumer. Because if I have the same price on the website as I have on the car, and maybe even the payment on the website and the payment on the car, that's a really big advantage. And I know a dealer that went from number 17 in the Northwest as a Toyota dealer to number 1 using that strategy of transparency. So he's kind of ahead of the game, but there's a lot of dealers that are still playing the good guy, bad guy, hiding the price.
You think that like the FTC, the Cars Act, you think it's going to take shape in some form, but do you think in the long term, do you think it's a positive for the dealership community as well?
Yeah, I think it is because it sort of forces transparency. I think they're ridiculous on their $50,000 fine per occurrence. Can you imagine I have 20 cars that are out of compliance and I'm getting fined 20 times 50,000? So the lawsuit's going to twist it, turn it. I think it's excellent for the consumer. I think it's good for the dealer. Now, every single time there's a rule and regulation, the government gets involved, it's usually not very great. It's usually kind of although this one, it's kind of forcing the dealer to be more transparent. So from that standpoint, they're changing the behavior somewhat. That could be very good for the dealer long term, could put him in a better position. And this dealer that I'm talking about that became number 1, he voluntarily did this and he's excelled. He's done incredibly well. And that's Toyota of Gladstone in Oregon.
And just so I understand, this dealer is strictly the only change you're referring to here is going to transparent pricing, like fixed pricing
and payment on every single car. So every single car has the real price, the same price on the website it is on the car. Okay. And it is the payments on there. So for a tier 1 customer credit, the payment's on every single car. And now it's a real pain in the rear for them to print up those window stickers, but it is working extremely well. And that's what got him from number 17 to number 1 in the Northwest.
All right. So we talked about what's exciting to you, but let's go broader now. Give me like 3-4 key themes that you're focusing on as an investor, an auto tech investor in the industry. What are these key themes that are important and that you're focused on?
Well, again, I just look for companies that have good ideas that will help a dealer sell more cars, or they can bring the consumer to the dealer in a very low cost way, which results in performance. So as I look back, I'm actively looking at 3 different investments right now. They're mostly in the one I was talking to you about, this Unison company. It's in Georgia. And they're very interesting. And I like what they're doing to help the dealer kind of streamline their data and own their data and bring a better consumer experience. So if we can, like this digital retailing, I think about Roadster, right? Who bought Roadster? CDK Global, right? And I remember Rudy, one of the original founders.
Yeah, I know Rudy.
He's off. Yeah, he's such a good guy. I love him. So he's off doing something else, but he helped build that company and get it to where it was. But digital retailing back, 5, 6, 7 years ago was kind of like edgy, right? I mean, do we really want to do that and give the power to a consumer to do the deal online, right? Or to get an actual payment and process all the paperwork you can online? Of course it's good. It's good for the dealer because he's spending less time with the consumer, right? On the show floor and in the back room. And so as I think about what's the next thing of digital retailing, what's that going to look like? Is it like I'm a Tesla driver as well. So I've got a Tesla. I went through the buying process of that Tesla and it was like 30 minutes. I was in and out, right? Because I did it online and I bought the car. And I'm wondering if that's kind of where we're going with the domestics and the foreign dealerships, right? With a transactional model that's more just like a checkout at Amazon, right? And so I think about those type of companies. Who's solving those problems? And there's a few that look like they're getting close.
Mm-hmm. Any specific ones you want to name?
Not right now, other than Unison's the only one that I want to mention. There's a couple others that I'm noodling with, but I haven't.
Yeah, I love the simplicity. Like the first answer you gave was just like, I want to help dealers sell more cars, and it's like literally any competent marketing department at a dealership, when you're observing a new opportunity, right? Like I always say, the disc test, right? Does it sell cars? It's like really, really simple in this industry. Will it actually work? It's like, that's what we're trying to solve. Like, will it sell more cars? Will it make the car buying process more efficient?
Yeah, sometimes we just get too complicated in this stuff, right? I mean, we overthink it, and it's really quite simple. And that's why I keep thinking about lot links and how well they're kind of performing in the marketplace. The dealers that are really successful using them, there's been a lot of churn in the industry through the COVID and after COVID. But the ones that are using lot links effectively are really, really excelling. And so I think about that and how well they've put together a product and how they're developing their AI and how they're doing. That's really interesting to me because they have new stuff coming out. Len promised me a demo and I've never got it yet, but I'm looking forward to that because I think there's something there that they're ready to roll out that might be interesting. And also the same thing with Digital Airstrike. I think they've got something up their sleeve, and Alexi's quite a incredible business leader. She's got passion and vision, and I think she's got this thing, and it's a secret sauce. I don't know exactly what it is. Again, I haven't looked at it yet, but there's something coming up here for that.
We finally did it. Car Dealership Guy News is live and ready to serve the car industry. We're not a traditional news outlet, and I'm not a journalist, but I believe the market deserves concise and unbiased car industry news presented in clear, straightforward English. From the latest stories in automotive to CDG podcast summaries, dealership best practices, and even consumer deals, we're going to offer it all. And the best part? In the classic CDG spirit, everything's 100% free for you. Check it out at cdg.news. That's cdg.news, and please give us feedback. Tell us what else you want. Rip us apart. We're not scared. We just want to provide value. Again, visit cdg.news or click the link in the show notes below. I want to ask you a bit of a different question. Do you think it's smart for dealers to incubate tech companies within their dealer groups? I mean, we've seen a lot of this.
Good question.
We've seen lots of this. I've obviously been involved. At our peak, we had 30 engineers on staff, which was quite an experiment. But in all seriousness, I mean, there's lots of dealers out here, that have done something with tech, whether it be, Island Auto Group from New York or Del Grand Dealer Group from the Bay Area. I mean, I could give many more examples. Of course, my buddy Ryan Maher, who founded BusyCar, right? Lots of dealers have done this and have been successful. I'm sure lots have also done and haven't been successful. We just, we haven't heard about them as much. What's your take on that? And wait, one more thing, actually, before you answer that question, right? Like, naturally, you have an embedded advantage where you own the testing grounds, right? Like, the testing grounds is your dealership. You're sort of like solving your own pain point. But anyways, go ahead. What's your take?
No, first of all, let me address that one first. Absolutely. Having a testing ground, an incubator, right? An actual user helping you design and build that system is extremely valuable. I think there's two schools of thought on the dealer-owned investment type of deal. I mean, there's a few success stories like Fraser McCombs, right? Chase and Zach and the team. Those guys have done it. Autotech Ventures is not the same thing, but they're sniffing around and they got a lot of investments in the auto industry. I think about VinQ as well, right? VinQ is a great example of a Fraser McCombs. Actually, Fraser McCombs didn't invest. I think Chase invested in it personally because he loved the model so much. So there's an idea, like a concept there. But I think the problem is I've seen it both ways. I've seen dealers really screw it up because they try to run this tech company like a dealership.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I'm laughing.
Oh yeah.
I'm laughing because like I imagine like my father saying something like that. I'm like, go ahead, tell me what that means.
Hey, listen, I love dealers. I've served them for 36 years of my life. I love dealers, but they they need to know what they're good at and what they're not good at. And what they're not good at is running the software company that they might have incubated or invested in. Listen, my advice to a dealer, don't try to take control of the business. Put a small investment in. Great. Have a little investment off to the side and then put that money in that business and let it run and get out of the way. Because I've seen where they've destroyed companies, right? Because they want to run it like a car dealer. And I've got 10 stories and I don't want to get into them because I love these dealers, but they're just not good at it. But they are very good at, they have resources. They have a store or two or five, and they can open up that door for, like, we're going to make mistakes, Mr. Dealer, right? You've invested in us. We're going to make mistakes, but this is a great opportunity to get all those things out so that we can launch this thing and scale it to everybody. And you're going to win when we do an exit 3 to 5, 6 years down the road, right? That's how they win. Small investment, minority, be on the board. That's great. Give input, but do not try to control that business because you're going to screw it up and you're going to take it down. It's just not going to work. Right. So just speaking as an entrepreneur and as somebody who's been in that position before and then seen other people and coached other CEOs out of it, I know what I'm talking about.
I love it. All right. So, couple things there. First of all, again, obviously I reflect back on my experiences. I think one of the things we did right when I launched Get a Car as an online auto retailing platform was right away I hired a CTO who had run an online auto retailing platform, right? And he was in charge of the engineers, and that actually allowed our tech team to scale very well and for us to build phenomenal tech team pretty quickly as well, because I just did not have that competency. But I knew enough to be able to hire a great leader to run that. So, anyways, I echo your sentiment because I think it's really important that the competency of being a dealer. To your point, it's very different than software, right? Software, you typically have high margin. Dealership business is very low margin. I think one of the weird things about that for me as I entered the software realm and I was thinking about auto tech was I was coming from an environment where I was focused on saving, every penny. Suddenly you're in software and it's like, wait, you need to grow quickly, right? You want to blitz the market in many cases. If you're first to market, you want to grow. Like, it's a completely different frame of mind that you have to really get adjusted. And us as dealers, we don't have that muscle typically, right? Like, the muscle that we practice is we're in a 5% net margin business. Let's save every penny. Software is in a completely different beast. I'll tell you a quick story. I met with one investor early on, looked me in the eyes, and he said, Yossi, he's like, I want to explain something to you. He's like, this was the first investor in Uber. He said, you are right now operating a Harley Davidson. Like, he's like a 1976 Harley Davidson. He was referring to the traditional dealership business. He said, the second you step into this venture game, he's like, now you're in a 2020 or whatever, 2018, whatever, F16 or whatever you want to call it. He's like, and he didn't believe that, we could make the adjustment. But the point is, like, it is a completely different frame of mind. And it's important to be cognizant of that because, as you said, dealers do have a great testing grounds and platform to build great software, but maybe it does not make sense for them to actually, operate that software themselves.
Absolutely. I think about Bruce Thompson, who's, he built AAX and sold that. Then he built Red Bumper and sold that. Then he built Car Offer and sold that to Car Gurus for a nice chunk of change. God bless America. Good for him. And he knew a lot of dealers and used the dealers' help to get his product perfected. And he really focused on that. And so he found dealers that would be open with that. And I think he got some dealers to invest with him too in his ventures. So there's a great example of how you can approach this. But I have a different view of these startups and how they should go about it. I look at, first of all, the integrity and all that. And I look at the idea that's second or third down the list, but what's the problem they're solving and so forth. But I always recommend a business just organic growth, right? So CarGG was a deal I did with Tony Hong back in the the early days. That was 7 years, 8 years ago, something like that. And then we built it and sold it to eBay Motors. And so Tony and I did everything with organic growth. We had 5,000 dealers that we took their inventory and posted to Craigslist, focused on one niche, right? And then we just ran, and we used resellers for our product because we had a lot of margin in that back in the day before they charged $5 a post. And we were able to expand to 6,000 dealers as our customers, which is a phenomenal success. And eBay Motors finally bought us. We had to pivot. There's a whole story there I won't bore you with, but you have to be willing to pivot. Organic growth is way undervalued, and taking on venture capitalism, you got to be careful, like who you dance with, right? There are devils out there. Maybe they don't have your best interest at heart. And I've seen a lot of crashes and burns from the wrong investors, right? So be careful on who you take money from. Kind of makes common sense, right? But you'd be surprised at how a little cash will make somebody do something.
Some things you learn from experience. Do you see us moving, or most of the OEMs in our industry, the auto manufacturers, do you see us moving to this like agency model type of experience where maybe the car manufacturer owns more of the vehicles on their balance sheet? Dealers are really fulfillment centers, other than, of course, used cars and fixed ops, but the new car side turns into like a just plain fulfillment center?
Yeah, I think didn't Ford and some of the other OEMs try to do that, and they kind of failed miserably, at least at the first blush at it. I think dealers will always provide a service and will always be an important piece of the transaction and the service afterwards. I think when you have the opportunity like a Tesla not to have dealers in the first place and not include them, then you kind of have a little bit of advantage not to worry about how do you use life. But then at the same time, Tesla's got lots of problems, right? So I try to take my Tesla in for service. I have to wait 2 weeks to get an appointment. Dealers are a little bit more responsive than that. And then what about like a total loss? I actually crashed my Tesla Y. A Mack truck hit me, and that the car was about half the size of the original size, and I walked out with a bruised rib. But trying to get that thing valued and tried to get that thing repaired. But first of all, it couldn't be repaired. It was total loss. But I had another Tesla before that I tried to get repaired. It was 2-3 months before I could get something repaired on it for the body work and that type of thing. So again, the Tesla's got some great advantages on the side of buying the car, but on the service side, they're still lacking dramatically. I think dealers, will always provide, even if like electric cars. Remember when we had all that momentum with electric cars, like the Fords and the Chevy Volts and all these different electric cars that came out, the Kia, and the idea was, look, all this momentum, and the dealer's not going to have a place now in the future. Remember that conversation where dealers are told you got to change your whole dealership now because everything's going to change. You're not going to have any service, right? These things don't need service, windshield wipers and tires, and that's all you're going to have to replace on them. Well, that didn't work out exactly that way, did it? And so, for me, there's like, okay, the OEMs have made several attempts of trying to eliminate the dealer, and it just hasn't worked. Dealers are resilient. They're brilliant, and they will change if they have to modify their model, but they'll always have a place. So I don't see that ever really happening down the road, at least in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't see it happening. I know there's a lot of people say, oh, there's not going to be any dealers. They're all consolidating. And maybe there's numbers that prove there's some consolidation happening, but there always will need a dealer to be with that consumer to help them either through service or sales, and to educate them about the vehicle and let them try it if they don't know exactly what they want. And a lot of them don't, right?
Yeah. Look, I think, but you make a good point. Again, if you look at observe the market opportunity, right? I think the smart dealers should be looking at, okay, it's clear that in a new car purchase as a dealer, you have fewer opportunities to provide value as opposed to servicing a vehicle, right? Again, like higher barriers to entry, right? Every OEM can ship a car to someone and sell it online, but OEMs can't service a vehicle that's owned by Sally that lives in the suburbs of Philadelphia and, is 50. Like, they can't do that. And she's not going to ship that car to Detroit. And the OEMs don't have local service centers. So I think to that point, like, right, if I put myself in the shoes of any dealer out there, I am asking myself, and I'm putting like, used cars aside for a second, how can I just double down on service? Whether that is evolving my actual service department, getting better training for my team, focusing on the new technology so I can service the vehicle of the future, right? Like, obviously, that includes electric vehicles. I feel like that is where the upside is when I look at the industry in general. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think your key word was really kind of like the dealer has to transform somewhat. They have to be ahead of the game, and they have to think about, how can I add value to my already existing. I mean, look, he's got a great asset. It's location, right? I've got a local location for my consumers, and that is their number one. It's the space. It's the facility. So that can take different forms, but it's never going to go away. I don't see it as something that, oh my God, all these dealers are going to like lose their dealership and there's not going to be enough margin in it. To your point, service is going to have to transform somewhat and be able to accommodate the electric vehicles and the different changes. I just don't know how much you're going to be able to service a electric car because for the most part, the windshield wipers and tires. I mean, maybe a battery replacement, but if you break something, that would be something. But I think one dealer told me that I was wrong. I can't remember which one told me, but anyway, I may not be accurate on that. But I don't think there's many things to fix on the electric vehicles. But we're going to have a lot of used vehicles, though, right? There's going to be a ton of opportunity for that. So again, I just don't see it as a doom and gloom thing for the dealer.
AI, will it replace entry-level opportunities in our industry? Salesperson, receptionist, whatever, or will it enhance those roles?
Enhance, not replace. Enhance. The yeah. With my little experience with AI, I wouldn't trust it. First of all, it's not a person. And, there's ways like, for instance, I've seen some technology. For instance, CarWiser is a great example. CarWiser reaches out to these sellers that want to sell their car, right? And then they offer up multi-offer prices for that car that the consumer wants to sell in real time, kind of like a kayak model for sell your car. And so in real time, it pulls the CarMax and the Carvana and the local dealer, the Echo Park prices of what they will pay for that car instantaneously. And I know CarWiser uses some AI just to reach out to the consumer to engage them in the process. But then it hands it over to an actual person or agents that can take it to okay, they brought it to the red zone and we're going to push it over the goal line. We're going to help that consumer sell their car, get all the paperwork uploaded. And there's a lot of automation you can bring to that, which reduces your need to hire more people, but you can utilize the people you have in more of an effective way. And I think the same thing for dealers. So I've got this big call center. I've got 30 people in my showroom with all these booths and different things. And they got headsets and they're making calls and following up with this or that. But if I could have that AI serve up the stuff I just repeat every day, all day long and make it sound real, and then I can filter that down to some actionable items that I can actually take over. That's really where I think AI is going to go. I don't think it's ever going to replace the salesperson. It will get close, but people want to talk to people. They don't want to talk to machines. And I think we're always going to have that need to have that human touch or that human conversation.
Yeah. Look, I think you mentioned a couple use cases, and I've spoken about this once or twice, but I invested in a company called Toma.com. Have you heard of them? So Toma.com, they help dealers double their service leads. And this is what I found is interesting, that if you think about it, like a big pain point is that dealers miss lots of service calls. And it could be for various reasons, right? Maybe you're busy or whatever. Maybe you're after hours. But what I found fascinating about Toma is that they essentially create AI that answers the phone and actually schedules the appointments for you. But it's very neat. Like, I actually tested this. I tested this and it works really well. Like they tell you it's AI, but it feels like you're really talking to a human. It's natural language. It like understands you, and you actually hear like a consumer like booking an appointment or whatever, doing something very naturally. And so I would echo your sentiment where like I think we're going to see more of that kind of stuff where it's an enhancer, right? It's like if that specific request from that customer can be handled by an AI agent that really feels like a human, even though it's not, right? That's better for the dealer, more appointments booked, customer experience is better, everybody wins. And it's really an enhancer in that perspective.
Oh, absolutely. No, I could see that. And but if you could throw that thing for a loop, I mean, I like to play mind games with the AI. I mean, that's kind of fun. Like, what can it
Yeah,
answer, right?
you like
What
to
little
really
can
test
I
it.
poke the bear a little bit, right? How can I figure this thing out to like break it? And so if I even have an indicator that that's an AI thing on the phone, I'm going to see if I can throw it. But what to your point, I mean, if it's good, matter of fact, are they still open for investments?
It's a good question. I don't think so, but you know, it's a startup. You're always open for business.
So there is a, there is a, the notion is how real does it have to be? And maybe I don't care as a dealer. Maybe I don't care if it gets me double my service revenue. I don't care if it doesn't sound perfect. And maybe that's really what it comes down to is it economics, right? For a dealer. But I don't know. My gut tells me there's got to be at some point where it's got to be a real person involved, right? Maybe setting appointments that might make sense, right? Because it's a repetitive thing and whatever. But I'd love to hear it. Matter of fact, I'd love to see that one. That would be interesting.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, you've worked with many CEOs and you've worked with many startups in our, especially in our industry, which makes it even more unique. Start us off with, you know, some of the traits you find in the best founder CEOs.
Wow. Integrity. You kind of think in terms of duh, right? But you might be surprised. I mean, who are they as a female, a woman or a man? Who are they? Where are their skeletons? I mean, I want to know all about that person. So when I sit down with the CEO, I dig in and the board. I like to meet the board as well. I dig into who they are, what's their vision, what are they trying to accomplish, and really who they are as a person, because that's really important to me. Because I don't work with jerks, so I have the no jerk policy that you can't, if you have fun, that's kind of half the battle, right? If you're enjoying that person or like that person. I think the other thing is the advice that I have for him is like, okay, first of all, be careful with your investors, right? Don't bring in money that is not going to be healthy for the organization. Okay, know your investors, and if you need investment, the better answer is, can you build this thing organically and start keeping a control of your business. The other thing is go with your gut. We forget about how important and how real and how valuable our gut instinct is. And a lot of times we second guess ourselves, right? Oh, did I make the right decision there? Maybe I'm not right in this direction. Just go with it. You'll learn. And if you have to pivot, you pivot, but go with your gut, go quick, go fast. Don't slow down and don't be analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis, right? Just go. And then the other thing is be authentic to everybody around you. Be real, be who you are. Don't be somebody you're not. And it sounds so simple, but man, have I seen some BS in my life? And you just got to cut through that and just peel back the onion a little bit and be transparent and real, authentic. And again, organic growth. And by the way, ideas are not where the value is at. Execution is where the value is for a CEO or a company. Don't get caught up in, this is a great idea. So it's like spread and it's worth $10 million. Bullshit. 100 other people have thought of that idea. They just talk about it and they're not doers, right? You're the doer. So now just get to it and stop valuating your idea more than the actual producing of what you're going to produce for the end user. So that's the focus that I really been. And by the way, I always think about, do I have any regrets in my life as I built my companies and different things and different investments. And I do. Usually people say, oh, I have no regrets in my life. Bullshit. You always have something. And I've got a couple of them. So one is, first of all, my children. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids as they were growing up and spent all my time on Chrome Data, right? And Deluxe. Those are the two things that just sucked my time. And so I do have a regret about that. I wish I would have spent more time with the kids. I still have a great relationship with them, but I think I would have been a more enriched life if I would have really managed my time better. And then the other thing is, Grant Cardone came to me. I don't know if you Grant Cardone. He was in the auto industry originally. Now he's a real estate guy out there, big investor, very successful real estate deal. He came to me before he started his Grant Cardone Capital, and he said, Boyd, invest with me. I got this great idea. I'm going to buy all of these apartment buildings, and it's going to be $1 billion. And I go, Grant, geez, I just invested a bunch of money in real estate, and I just invested over here, and I don't really have the timing's not right for me right now. And he goes, oh, Boyd, you're going to regret it. And so now I fast forward and I look at just like my investment, what he's asking me, I think it was $500,000 or something like that, would have been worth about 50 million, 40 million, something like that, something ridiculous. So I did regret not investing in Grant Cardone's thing.
So what's the lesson in there then?
Go with your gut, because my gut was I probably should, but I just I don't know, the timing wasn't right. I made some excuse, whatever. Go with your gut. That was like, and then the last thing is, I really wanted to do a lot of world traveling, but I will tell you, I had the opportunity to meet, the Virgin airline guy, Richard Branson. At the digital airstrike, Alexi and Dave invited me and my wife to meet with him as his resident in Morocco, and we flew out there with the team and some dealers and just had the best time in the world. What an interesting guy, and had a chance to ask him a few questions too. And he was just so. I think what I found is that these successful people, they fall in one of two categories: either their ego's gotten so big that they really believe they're all that and they're like a god and you're never going to die. Or the other people are the more humble, like open, honest, kind, generous. And I saw Richard Branson as that kind of guy. And it's really fascinating, some of the stories. So I learned a lot through that process. But that was, I guess go back to the regret is that I didn't travel as much as I'm doing now. I wish I would have done that more at an earlier age. I'm 65 right now, but I guess there's time to travel. I guess I should start doing more of it. Maybe that would be fun.
I mean, first of all, I was listening to you very closely because you obviously have tons of experience, and it's fun to learn from someone like yourself. I think that even building this company, Car Dealership Guy Media, it's I talk about it pretty publicly. I kind of fell into this, and I'm glad I did because it feels like it was meant to be. But it requires a ton of you, right? It's a hell of a treadmill. You got to push hard. I'm thankfully I have an amazing team now, which makes it much more manageable than it was early on when it was me plugged in 25/7, I should say. But with all that said, I'm 100% owner. I get to call my shots. And I think that gives me that creative freedom to be able to build a platform that is aligned with my vision, I don't have to report to anyone, really my boss is my audience. That's my boss. And that's who I built for. And it's a pretty unique feeling, which I kind of wasn't accustomed to, having built a venture-backed company for, the last like almost 4 to 5 years. So it's definitely been a very interesting experience, and I'm glad life took me to this path, because in hindsight, it feels like it was meant to be. But it's just great to be able to do this, and everything you just mentioned, I really resonate with, because there's just no easy path. Even this, it's like everything is long hours, lack of balance for periods of your life if you want to build something great, and everything you said, it really, really resonates. So this has been awesome. Hey, I want to, before I ask you for your closing thoughts, I have a quick story I want to share with you, just to give you some feedback. So you invited me to your NADA party, which I attended this year. I came with our team. Cole was there. I came with my wife as well. And so we spoke earlier about like reputation and stuff like that, right? And so one thing that when we entered your suite for your party at NADA, you greeted us very graciously, very nicely. Like it was really nice the way you greeted us. And my wife was like, after she's like, who was that? I was like, oh, this is Mark. This is, who's hosting the event. And she was like, oh, wow. Like that was super nice of him to really, not just like it was like you didn't even know me back then, but it was like I wasn't like an afterthought, right? And I'm sure you treat all your guests that way. And so the point I'm trying to make is that she was like, wow, like he's a really cool guy. Like, and so the point I'm trying to make is just that like this is like when people talk about reputation, your reputation precedes you. It's stuff like that. It's little acts like that we don't realize have an impact on us in so many, like, just think how that permeates, right? She told me that everyone that asked me about Mark Boyd since then, right? I have positive thoughts that I associate with you. It's just so crazy how you treat people in certain ways, these little things, how they can travel so far. And anyways, I wanted to tell you that because she mentioned it to me several times. I forget, like random conversations, but all because, you were just being kind to someone that you didn't really know. And, it's crazy how far that travels. So obviously keep it up because, I know that was natural to you and genuine to you, but look how that people remember how you made them feel.
That's I really tell your wife thank you, first of all. That was really kind. I don't yes, thank you. I mean, that's wonderful to hear. I appreciate that so much.
Mark Boyd, any closing thoughts for our audience?
Well, watch out for a very big company about to launch. It's going to blow your mind and it's going to be phenomenal. It's like the best thing I've ever done. And it is, I can't talk about it right now, but it's going to be phenomenal. But time with you, Yossi, was fabulous. I really appreciated the opportunity. Again, I don't do these things, so it's a little uncomfortable for me, but hey, it's, this is good. And, I'm glad I did it. Absolutely. And I hope it helps somebody out there in some way. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Really good having you on.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.